Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me again. My name is Yelena. I'm a citizenship and immigration lawyer in Canada, and I'm a partner at Rashid Rosovic LLP, a firm that helps with different immigration and citizenship matters. Um, and as you know, we're here weekly for our discussions related to COVID-19 and how the pandemic is impacting different aspects of Canadian immigration law. So I hope that everyone is staying safe and healthy. And thank you for joining me today. Today, I'm going to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on express entry applications. So we've talked about different topics over the last couple of months and focused on different areas that may be of interest to you at this time. For example, we've covered travel restrictions. Rafina has done an update on that as of last week because the situation is quickly changing and evolving. I've talked about the different aspects of applications, processing delays, what you can submit, what you cannot submit at this time, also sponsorship, spousal sponsorships. And today I'm going to be talking about Express Entry, which is a very popular program. But if you have any questions about any other areas, take a look at our videos that we have posted on our Facebook page. You can also send us questions about any of those. We're offering free consultations, 15-minute consultations during COVID-19, and that information is posted on our Facebook page, and I will be reposting it again for anyone who is interested in getting some one-on-one advice. Turning to today's topic of express entry. As I said, this is a very popular program, and the Canadian Immigration Department continues to accept applications during COVID-19 and is continuing to process applications that have already been submitted. Economic immigration, which is what express entry deals with, remains an important objective of Canadian immigration law. So, for example, hundreds of thousands of individuals come to Canada every year as economic immigrants. This is actually the largest chunk of the immigration that the immigration flow into Canada. So, just to give you an example, the target for the next couple of years for economic immigration will be between 195,000 and 212,000 per year of individuals immigrating as economic immigrants. So this is what I mean when I say it's a very large number of people who are coming to Canada as economic immigrants. And I listened to the Canadian Immigration Minister speak a couple of days ago to the immigration lawyers, and he emphasized the continued importance of economic immigration. This will be used to help Canada recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. So we don't expect the numbers to go down. We expect them to remain steady. Although there may be some processing delays, the numbers are not expected to decrease. So this is certainly good news for everyone who is looking at this as an option for immigration. So what is express entry, our topic for today? So this is an online system that the Canadian Immigration Department uses to manage applications for permanent residence from skilled workers. It's not a program itself. This is sometimes a source of confusion for people. Express entry is just the system used to manage different programs. So there are three main programs that are managed through Express Entry. Well, the first one is Canadian Experience Class. Then we have Federal Skilled Workers and Federal Skilled Trades. There are also a number of provincial programs that are included in Express Entry because different Canadian provinces will go into the system, Express Entry system, and look for candidates who qualify for the different provincial programs and invite them to apply through Express Entry. So these are provincial nominations that then are processed by the province. but the province will find the candidates in the express entry system. So how does it work? This is a two-step process. You need an invitation to apply. So you can't simply decide, I'm going to apply under Canadian Experience class and submit your application. That's not how it works. The first step is to get an invitation. And then once you have an invitation, you can apply for permanent residence. First, you need, in order to get the invitation, you need to enter into the pool of qualified candidates after the system determines that you meet the eligibility requirements for one of the programs. So the first step is to create what's called an express entry profile. The second step will be to apply for permanent residence after you get the invitation to apply. So once you get a letter from the Canadian Immigration Department telling you that you have been selected to apply, then you have your opportunity to submit your application. What are the factors that are assessed for eligibility? So this is across all programs, but the different programs have slightly different criteria depending on which program you're looking at. So just as an example, Canadian Experience class will require 1 year of work experience in Canada, whereas the federal skilled trades will require work experience in a particular trade. So those are the nuances between the different programs. But generally, the eligibility is assessed based on your age, based on your education. And when it comes to education, your spouse's or your common law partner's education can also receive points. Education in Canada can also receive points. And then work experience in Canada and outside Canada, and only skilled work experience will be eligible for points. Language skills is another factor that is assessed, so English or French knowledge. Here you can also rely on your spouse's language skills. If you have a job offer in Canada, and it has to be a qualifying job offer, so there are rules surrounding that, but if you have a job offer, that is something that is used to assess your eligibility. If you have siblings, so brother or sister, who are Canadian citizens or permanent residents and who are living in Canada. And points are assigned differently depending on whether you're applying alone as a single person or whether you're married or in a common law relationship. So that will impact how the points are assigned. So the Immigration Department has an online tool that you can use to calculate the total number of points based on your qualifications. It's a good guidance for anyone who is interested in how they would compare to other candidates in the pool, because you can also see how many candidates there are in the pool and how many points that they have at any given time. So the tool, if you use it to assess your eligibility, will give you a total number of points out of a maximum of 1,200. And then if you look at the previous rounds of invitations for which people received this letter inviting them to apply for permanent residence, you will see the number of points that was required in the past, and you can gauge whether you would be a competitive candidate or not. So going back to the steps for applying. The first step, as I said, is creating your express entry profile. So there are two things that you need before you can create the profile. You need your language test results, and there are only two tests for English that are accepted by the Immigration Department. The first is IELTS and the second is CELPIP. So one of those two tests, you need to write the test. Even if English is your first language, you still need to write the test and have that as proof of your language abilities. The second document that you need is called an educational credential assessment. So this is a report from a designated organization that will take a look at your education outside of Canada and determine what your education is equal to in Canada. Just to let you know, in order to get the educational credential assessment done, the designated organization that you choose will need to communicate directly with the school that you graduated from. They'll need to receive documents directly from the school. So a copy of your diploma or degree or certificate, and a copy of your transcript. So this is something to keep in mind because this process can take some time, and some schools are more responsive than others. So keep that in mind when you are preparing for the educational credential assessment. So once this designated organization has all your documents, they will provide you with a report that states what your foreign education is equal to in Canada. If you have Canadian education that you're relying on, you do not need to do this educational credential assessment. This is only applicable if you are applying based on your foreign education outside of Canada. So after you get your language test results and your educational assessment, you can create your Express Entry profile. It is an online application. You will need to answer a number of questions, and if you're eligible to apply under one of the programs available, you will be placed in a pool of qualified candidates. The system will assign you a total number of points and tell you which program you're eligible to apply under. And both the score and the program that you're eligible under are important to keep in mind, because this is what determines whether you will be invited to apply in any future draws. I'll talk about the specifics of the rounds of invitations in a little bit, but this is the first step of creating your Express Entry profile. After your profile is created, it will be valid for 12 months. You will be in this pool of qualified candidates for 12 months. And during those 12 months, you can be invited to apply for permanent residence, either right away in the next round of invitations if you have a very competitive score, or maybe later in the future when the program targeted is different or when the score is lower. And there's no cost to create your Express Entry profile, because this is not actually the application. This is just you expressing your interest to apply for permanent residence in Canada. So let's talk about some of the COVID-19 delays relating to this first step of the process. Language tests. This is the first area where a lot of delays are happening. It's difficult to schedule a test during the pandemic. Some testing centers are not offering tests. Others are offering them at a very reduced capacity. So you will need to look into that and check which testing centers may have a test available, a test date available, or you may have to wait until the pandemic is over and then schedule your test then. I checked the CELPIP website, for example, a couple of days ago to see how things are looking. And there are test centers in Canada that are accepting, that have test dates and that are scheduling them, usually a couple of months from now. So take a look at that. There's also the possibility for signing up for email notification where they will let you know once things are up and running again, so that you don't have to keep going back to their website to check. But just keep that in mind. If Express Entry is on your radar, there are currently delays with the testing. Another delay is with the educational credential assessment. So a lot of our clients, for example, use World Education Services, or WES for short, to get their educational credential assessment done. There are other designated organizations, but I will speak about this one for now just because I have recent experience through clients who are waiting for their educational credential assessments. So up until a few days ago, the announcement on WES's website indicated that the postal mail operations are disrupted. So essentially they were not checking their mail. Applicants were being encouraged to work with their schools to submit documents electronically. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're doing your educational credential assessment, see if you can get the school to send the documents electronically to WES. A couple of days ago, WES updated their website to indicate that they've resumed processing mailed academic documents. So this is good news. But they're still encouraging institutions to keep sending documents electronically because their staff are working from home like many of us are. So work with your school, try to work with WES to get the educational credential assessment done, but do expect delays and significant delays in some cases based on what I've seen. So this is important to keep in mind. So I have a question here. I'll just read it out. My work permit expires in July. I cannot get my language test and ECA done, so this is the educational credential assessment, in time because of the current situation. I would like to submit my express entry profile and provide hypothetical information for the results. Is this possible? So unfortunately, no, this is not possible. You will need your actual test results for your language testing and your actual educational assessment. Each of these documents will have numbers on them that are unique to the report that you have received, that can be cross-referenced with the information that you provide in the express entry profile. So unfortunately, unless you have both documents available, you will not be able to create your express entry profile at this time. So you need to look into your options for extending your work permit beyond July, or changing your status in Canada to a different kind of status, like a visitor status. Moving on to step 2. So step 1 was creating your express entry profile, and once you have it, you will be placed in the pool of qualified candidates. Step 2 is getting the invitation to apply and actually applying for permanent residence. So that is the step that you want to get to. The idea is to get out of the pool, to be invited to apply for permanent residence. And how does this work? The Immigration Department regularly conducts rounds of invitations that I have been mentioning. They send out invitations to individuals who qualify under one of the programs and who meet the minimum score for that round of invitations. So the score is different for each round, but you can get an idea of what the scores have been in the past so that you know whether you will be a competitive candidate. If you receive an invitation letter, you will have an opportunity to apply for permanent residence. The application is electronic. It's done through the same online portal that you do your express entry profile in. You will need to fill out the online application forms, and you need to submit the supporting documents to prove each of the different factors, such as your work experience, your education, if you have relatives in Canada, if you have a job offer, all of that has to be documented. You should start actually gathering the supporting documents as soon as you create your express entry profile, and particularly so if you are a very competitive candidate, because you could be receiving the invitation to apply within a few days. If you qualify for the next round of invitations, you can get your invitation to apply very quickly. So then you will need all of your supporting documents so that you can submit your application for permanent residence. So what are some of the COVID-19 measures in place at the moment? First, express entry profiles can still be created during COVID-19, and the Immigration Department is regularly issuing invitations to apply. So I've already talked about that a little bit. It's not necessarily business as usual, but the invitations to apply are being issued. If you get an invitation to apply for permanent residence, you will have 90 days to submit your application. This is longer than usual. Normally you get 60 days, but during COVID-19, the Immigration Department is giving everyone 90 days to submit their applications. As I discussed a couple of weeks ago, and mentioned today again, delays are to be expected during the current pandemic. The Immigration Department has also put in place a number of measures to make it a little bit easier to apply during this time. So, for example, no application will be refused or closed because there are documents missing. However, it's important to provide an explanation for any documents that are missing, and then as soon as you have them, submit them to the immigration department. So for example, if you cannot get a police certificate for your application, or if your passport is expiring and you can't get a new passport because of COVID-19, make sure that you explain all of that in your application. You will also be given 90 days to complete any subsequent steps, for example, biometrics, because there are current service disruptions there as well. So keep in mind that submitting your permanent residence application, even if you have all the documents, or if you submit it as, an incomplete application with some missing documents and an explanation, keep in mind that this does not extend your temporary residence status in Canada. You will need to submit a separate application to deal with the extension of your temporary residence status if you are currently in Canada. One important fact that I want to mention is that fees must be paid. So this is not something that you can explain in a letter if you're not able to pay the processing fees. There's no leeway being given for the fees. You must pay the processing fees when you submit your application. And it's important to note that there was a recent increase in fees as of April 30th. So about a week ago, the fees increased. The application fee went up from $550 per applicant, so principal applicant or accompanying spouse, to $825, a big increase in fees, unfortunately. The dependent child fee increased from $150 to $225 per child. And the right of permanent residence fee, which you don't have to pay when you apply, you can pay it later on in the process, it increased from $490 to $500. So the online application actually has not been updated yet with the new fees. So between now and June 2nd, you actually have to pay the processing fees in two different ways. You will be able to pay the old fees when you submit your application through the online portal. But before you do that, you need to calculate the difference between the new fees and the old fees, and you need to pay the difference through a separate portal, an e-payment portal. You need to log in there and pay the difference and get a copy of that receipt and upload it with your application in the portal where you're submitting your application. So a little bit of a workaround for the next month or so until the system is updated with the new fees. So I have another question that I want to answer at this time. I received an invitation to apply for permanent residence in April. Should I submit my application right away or wait until I have all the supporting documents? So this really depends on a number of factors. Are you currently in Canada, and will your temporary status be expiring soon? If so, it may be beneficial to submit the application as soon as possible, and if you're missing any documents, explain what is missing, why it's missing, when it will be ready, so that you can apply for an open bridging work permit once you submit your application and extend your status that way. But if your temporary status still has a number of months left on it, then it may be better for you to wait until you have all of the documents and submit your application at that time. It will also depend, your decision will also depend on which documents you're missing. Is it the police certificate? Is it the medical exam? Is it your photo? So some documents may be easier to obtain when the restrictions are lifted, whereas others, particularly ones that depend on foreign governments, such as police certificates, may be further delayed depending on what the restrictions are that are in place in those countries. So keep that in mind and sort of, make a strategic decision based on your circumstances and particularly your temporary residence status at the moment. So I indicated that I will talk a little bit about the rounds of invitations during COVID-19. So pre-COVID-19, we were seeing an increase in the number of points required to get an invitation to apply. So invitations were being issued to candidates who had scores in the 470s. So for example, there was a draw on March 4th, 2020, and the minimum score was 471 points. And at that time, there was no program specified. It was through any program that individuals were qualified under. Since the start of the pandemic, there has been a trend downward, which is a welcome change. A lot more people have been able to get invitations to apply with lower number of points. So the draws in the last couple of months, however, are targeting specific programs. So we've seen a total of 8 rounds of invitations in the last 2 months or so. Half of them have targeted provincial nominees, and the points for those are very high because an individual will get an additional 600 points if they're nominated by the province. So you will see invitations in the 700s or even 800s, and not a whole lot of invitations being issued. So a few hundred invitations being issued when it's a provincial nominee program that's being targeted. We have also seen a number of rounds of invitations for Canadian Experience class specifically, and that is where the total scores have been decreasing in the last couple of months. So we had a draw in March for 467 points, then another one in April, 464, 455 mid-April, and the last draw on April 30th, so last week, was 452 points. So a downward trend, which is great for those who are waiting for an invitation to apply, but Canadian Experience class only. So we have not seen any invitations under the Federal Skilled Workers or Federal Skilled Trades since the pandemic started. The reason for this is likely that Canadian government is trying to target those individuals who are in Canada so that they can regularize their status and get their permanent residence. Federal skilled workers, for the most part, will be outside of Canada and then coming in at a later point. So I mentioned already a little bit about the Bridging Open Work Permit. It will allow you to continue working while you wait for your permanent residence application to be processed, and you may be eligible for it if you apply under express entry, but you need to have applied. So I actually have a question here. I have my express entry profile posted. I have 450 points. My work permit will expire in August. Can I apply for the Bridging Work Permit? No. As I said, the Bridging Open Work Permit is only available after you submit your permanent residence application. So it is available at step 2, not at step 1. When you have your express entry profile, you don't actually have an application for permanent residence that's being processed. You need to get that invitation to apply and actually submit your application with all of the supporting documents before you can benefit from the Bridging Open Work Permit. So the question that I had with the work permit expiring in August, you will need to explore your options for extending your status in Canada beyond August if you'd like to continue working, because Bridging Open Work Permit may not be an option unless you receive an invitation to apply and you submit your application between now and August. So I think those are all the questions. Just double check that I have for today. Yep, no questions on the comments. So just a reminder, we are offering free 15-minute consultations during the COVID-19 pandemic. We are here to help you with any questions that you may have. If you or your friends or your family are looking for any assistance, feel free to get in touch with us, and we will provide advice on how best to approach your situation. I will post the details again in the comments section after this video. We will be here for another discussion next week, so join Rafina Thursday at 11 a.m. If there are any particular topics that you would like us to address, let us know. We're happy to discuss anything that may be of interest to our listeners. Send us your questions ahead of time or during the discussion. We'll be happy to answer those. And if you have any questions, as I said, feel free to get in touch with us. Every person's circumstances are different, so if your friends or your family are going through a certain set of circumstances and are able to resolve them in a certain way, the same may not be available to you. So it's important to discuss your particular circumstances with a professional, and we are here to help. So please do get in touch with us. Thank you for joining me today, and have a great day. Take care.